Why is change so difficult? Whether it's by an individual, a country, or an organization. To answer that, we need to go right back to the beginning. What would you see if you could look inside the head of a child that's just been born? You'd see a number of neurons and synapses, which together form a kind of software that we already have when we're born. That software makes sure you breathe automatically, that you start to suck when something is put in your mouth, and that you start to cry when you're wet. Even though you have no knowledge of the words hungry and wet yet. At the age of 6, you see that large numbers of links have been made between the neurons, while at 14 there aren't quite as many of those links. What's happened is that up to the age of 6 you're seeing and storing everything for the first time. You're creating a conceptual framework in which you store all those new experiences. One limitation of this process is that your framework also acts as a filter through which you view the world, and it makes you look for things that confirm your own framework. How your life will turn out is already to a large extent determined by the time you're 6. That's because you've written a script. Not only individually, families and even countries also have their own scripts. If you ask people in Spain whether they think it's important to show initiative in their work, you'll find 13% will say yes, while in the Netherlands the figure is 80%. Which shows that taking initiative is part of the script in the Netherlands but not in Spain. To summarize, we all have software in our heads which is sensitive to repetition, and if something is repeated often enough, it will eventually, as far as we're concerned, become true. This truth then forms the basis for your own values and beliefs. We can explain these by the logic of our own thinking, but that logic, which we often confuse with rationality, is really only a subjective truth. And what happens when we have to operate outside our own logic? I was in Hanoi and in the morning I stepped outside and there was traffic everywhere and I had no idea how to cross the road because in my logic I was looking for traffic lights and signs until somebody told me just start walking, because our logic is that everybody sticks to his or her own speed, whether they're in a car, on a bike or on foot. So everybody else in turn can figure out how fast they have to drive or walk. So the first step I took was completely against my own instincts. But I walked out into that square and kept walking at the same speed, and I gradually began to understand and accept their logic. So when we're talking about change, whether it affects individuals or organizations that have to go through big change processes, it's tremendously important to realize that it almost always means rewriting your own logic. And for individuals, that can really be a life-threatening experience.